podcast.
One podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me.
And I got to stay leaning into the mic.
Yes, you do.
All right, cool.
Because you making my job difficult.
Well,
It's all right, though.
Yes, all right. So today's Father's Day.
Yes, it is. Happy Father's Day, sir.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to me. Happy Son of the Father to you. Whatever.
I guess I'll take that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so Bum Podcast. Today we not since all of our podcasts are typically about father-son stuff, there's no need for us to dedicate a particular podcast to Father's Day. But I do want to say Happy Father's Day to all our listeners out there. So
It's Happy Father's Day.
Yeah. I guess the other day, I had an opportunity to participate in a podcast, and it was about college preparation, and it got me excited. And if you want to check it out, I'm going to do a shameless plug. It's Turn 'em Loose, TURN hyphen, no, not hyphen, TURN, comma, EM, Turn 'em Loose, LOOSE. The guy's name is Peyton Tomlin, PT. And so you can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, and all the places that you can get the podcast app. So Turn 'em Loose. And on Turn 'em Loose, I actually sat in with a few gentlemen, actually, including Peyton Tomlin, who was our host, and we talked about college preparation. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, the conversation was exciting to me, and we went on, and even after the conversation was over, we stayed on and talked some more about it.
Because it's kind of right down your alley.
It's kind of right down my alley. Like, I mean, it was my sweet spot for real. And it's interesting because I've been wanting to have a conversation with you about college and college preparation. And so I'm going to try to wrap a whole lot of stuff in the next 20 minutes that going to kind of highlight maybe not so much of what we talked about on the call, but I did talk about you some on the call, but how our approach was for you going to college, what your approach was for going to college, and how it played out. And if again, I'm always wondering, like, was there something missing? Is there something better that could have been done, should have been done, whatever? Yeah. So I'm going to let you start with,
oh, God.
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to see how open and honest
for real, right? Open and honest.
What am I starting with?
So your college preparation. Tell me about your college preparation and your approach to your college preparation by yourself. Like, what was your mentality? Well, your mentality was, I ain't going to college.
That wasn't necessarily my. So for me, college has never been a dream for me. College was never. I don't know, because college was almost like the next step, but not necessarily. I never saw my life as college had to be the next step. I think we always prepared so that I was in the best position possible if I were to go to college. Mm-hmm. And when it came down to that real, I guess, kind of crunch point, I guess more so junior year, senior year, when I'm deciding what route I wanted to take, I decided college would be the best route. But I've never just been, I guess you could say, sold out higher education for my life specifically.
Okay.
Especially just because of the nature of what I do and what I'm pursuing doing.
Okay.
But I think, I guess kind of transitioning over to the other side, I think college has definitely been beneficial for me.
Has it?
Yes, definitely. Especially just having extra time. Like, so far, I mean, just a couple more years to even process life. Okay. Figure out, I guess, my own philosophies on life and what I'm looking at doing and where I'm looking at going. Just having that extra time as well as being in the atmosphere of, I guess, of like-minded people trying to prepare themselves for that next step of making their way into kind of this real world, this working world. Yeah. And so I think that's definitely been beneficial for me.
That's cool that you mentioned that. And I think this podcast is about to head in another direction, but it's still college related. But as I hear you talk, it just brings stuff to mind because I must admit, some have thought of me as the anti-college person, and so it was never shocking to me that college was not necessarily on your immediate realm or immediate. It's like it's automatic. I'm going to college because I've always told you that you did not have to go to college. The choice was yours. As I mentioned on other podcasts, I gave you a choice. Your choices were, and college was one of them, being the dormitory. But you could have gone in the military, or you could have chosen to just pursue your own thing and get an apartment, but I call it the bridge because I understand.
Call it like it is.
Call it like it is, going to the bridge because you wasn't going to stay with me. And so that's interesting nearly enough. But I think it kind of, well, like you said, we prepared you. We made sure that you took the classes that were requisite for you to go to college, because we wanted to make sure if that time came, you were prepared for that. I even want to touch a little bit on the class, because it was like a pre-college class that you had the opportunity to take. And I think we mentioned something about it in one of the podcasts before as well. But I want to touch on that. But where my mindset is going is, like, it was more than academia that we were trying to prepare you for.
Right.
And it was hard for us to prepare you for academics.
That's kind of something I want to say. Or I guess it's something that I kind of inherited from you, or something that I've learned from just growing up under you, is having a preparatory mindset. Mm-hmm. So even in getting ready for next step thinking, I was doing things like preparing for college, even to the point where I was ahead when I went into college, taking the ASVAB, different things like that, just preparing myself for whichever road I chose to go down. And so I just was going to say something about the preparatory mindset.
Well, that's cool, because you know what? I, even as parents listen in and we talk about that pre-college mindset, like I've met so many parents, and they've told me, my kid got to go to college, and my question is always, why? Because I say they got to go to college, because they can't do anything without going to college.
That's not a real answer.
And it's not. It really is not a real answer, and it's not a real answer because a lot of kids flunk out of college because of that. And I always tell people, if you're gonna set your kids up to go to college, but you're not gonna set your kids up to go to college to succeed in college, which a lot of parents don't. They just think that by them going to college, they're going to automatically succeed, and they don't even go in with a success mindset. They go in with I just showed up on campus, and now I'm going to find all the elements that I want to find because I'm immediately away from my parents. And so I was under no illusions about that. First of all, I understood that once you left out of our house, then you were going to find the tea that you wanted to find, and it may not include academia as much. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. It's really what I find is important, just in, I guess, from even past parenting, just in general. When you're talking about having conversations, or you're talking about raising someone or imparting knowledge to someone, I would more so aim towards imparting a mentality, or imparting like a view of the world. Give a view of the world, or a lens of the world in which they can look through, other than just so these are the steps you need to take. This is the path you need to go down. Because when you go down a path without the view or the understanding of the mentality, the context, it's really just a blind path, a blind mission that you don't really know where you're going. You just know that you're going somewhere. And so I think it's really important to, I guess, just to instill the mentality, give that context.
Right. And so even when I'm talking to people, and I try to give a lot of good advice. I do try to give good advice. But even when I'm giving the advice that I give, I tell people, but I can't give you a roadmap. Well, I can give you like a guide. Okay. But if we don't start from the same place, that's mentally, that's socioeconomically, that's even geographically, if we don't start from the same place, I can give you a roadmap, but I don't know what path that's going to take you on, because we didn't start from the same place.
What worked for me might not work for you.
Right. What worked for me might not work for you. So I can give you some time-honored wisdom to say, okay, think about it. But I would prefer to give it to you, like you said, in context, so that you'll understand. I might not face the same exact thing that he's saying, but if I think about what he's saying and I apply it to my life, it might help me to get close. And so, and that's why we did all the things that we did for you. Again, like even for me, I remember I went to college. And I went into the reserves after I went into college. I had to take some extra steps. But for you, if that was the choice that you wanted to make, one of the things that we did for you was we prepared you, because you said you took the ASVAB.
Right.
And so we wanted to make sure that you maximized every opportunity every step of the way. Not just so that you'd have those options, but we wanted to build inside of your mindset that I need to maximize every opportunity across the board every step of the way. And so I think that was important. And so for the parents out there who are listening, like I get it. I mean, I'm not telling you not to tell your children to go to college. I mean, like if you want them to go to college, that's fine. But also, like first of all, help them to be versatile. So if they're going to the world of work, or if they're going to decide they're going to go to the world of work, then, give them a mindset of going into the world of work. If they decide that they want to go in the military, like give them the mindset of maximizing their opportunities as they go in the military. Have them to take the ASVAB. Have them to maximize the ASVAB. Because the bad thing is, if you don't do your best on the ASVAB, you get what they give you.
Right.
If you maximize the ASVAB, you may get the opportunity to choose what you do when you go in the military. And if you go into college, make sure that they have the option of going to college, maximizing their opportunities. And it's a whole nother level of stuff that that we even got into on the other podcast. So again, let me give you a plug. Turn Them Loose podcast. We talked about it on the Turn Them Loose podcast, but even talking about the mentality when going about choosing a college, because I know a lot of times, students choose colleges based upon, if their parents have already gone, that legacy thing. You got something?
Because I was thinking in my head even a little bit about that type of subject. A lot of times what I see from my perspective of being at a school, especially the school that I'm at, which is Hampton University, I find a lot of students, a lot of the people there, they've been raised for Hampton. They've been raised for college. So their whole lives they've been put on this path to prepare them to get to this location. But then they get there and they're not necessarily ready for the location because they don't have any sight past that. All they knew their whole lives was they were going to go to Hampton or they were going to go to this university. So when they actually got there, they haven't thought about how they're taking on that place when they get there. And so that's even more so why it's important to have the whole mindset when it comes to preparing yourself for that step.
All right, cool. So, yeah. One of the other things I want to touch on is the whole you going out to college. I notice a lot of kids going out to college and they want to be entrepreneurs. Right. And now, nowadays, everybody's an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Because they're making it so accessible. Back in the day, if you wanted to be a radio personality, you had to get a job at a radio station. Right. You wanted to be a musician, you had to find a label. If you wanted to be a television star, you had
it's
to.
All about doing it yourself
right.
now.
And now you can do it all because everything's accessible to you, especially if you got an iPhone. You got an iPhone.
B. Simone talk and all that.
Say it again.
I don't know if you've heard about the B. Simone situation.
I heard about it, but I don't have a context for it, so it really didn't.
Basically,
register.
she was just talking about when she's looking for a partner, or like when she's looking with who she wants to deal with, they have to be an entrepreneur. They can't be a 9-to-5 worker, things like that. Almost as if she was likening it to two different tiers: 9-to-5 versus entrepreneur. Like entrepreneurs higher.
Yeah.
So that's also been something that's been, I guess, going around right now. This whole conversation about entrepreneurship.
And it's funny because I tell a lot of people, man, like, you're not an entrepreneur, you're self-employed. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We had a podcast where we talked about that earlier. It's like everybody want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't really understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And
what that even looks like.
And so even again, this is like parents. Even if your child decides to go to college, you might want to have this conversation with them. Because I had this conversation because we've talked before about the ROP 13, right. And during the ROP 13 we've had a conversation where it was about it's business or something like that was the title of it,
right.
And I know that T has always had a bend to be an entrepreneur because he's a musician, and so I had to have the conversation with him and provide documentation for him about entrepreneurship. Right. And it's like, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be self-employed? Do you want to work for somebody else? And talk about all the different things that looks like. And so even if you have a student that's going to college, and oftentimes students do go to college, and they have to get jobs because it costs so much money to go to school. Mm-hmm. When I'm coaching students, I coach them on the types of jobs to even look for, right. Because for me, everything needs to go in the same direction. But this is I picked this up off social media somewhere, and it was an entrepreneur versus a wantrepreneur. Mm-hmm. An entrepreneur versus a wantrepreneur, and it's funny, and it all goes to mindset. It really all goes to mindset. And as parents, again, at the end of the day, we want to see our kids to be successful. That's what we want. And so if we're preparing our kids for college, if we're preparing our kids for life, we need to deal, like you said, in things that provide context and not necessarily direction. Because a lot of times we try to tell them what to do, and it doesn't work. But we need to be able to give them direction so that when they hit up against a wall or when they, get kind of lost, then they know where to go. And so this thing, it kind of differentiates between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur. And an entrepreneur, they say, is somebody that has an idea today and has a business in 1 month.
Right.
Right. So it's like, I got an idea. I'm going to flush it out real quick and we go into concept. Entrepreneurs fail a lot. I just want you to understand that. Like, they really fail a lot.
That's true.
I got a friend, man. I mean, he's a true entrepreneur. Like, and I'm going to give him a shout out, Alvin Perry, P5 Designs. If you check him out, PV, the Roman numeral 5V, P5 Designs, right? And so Alvin, man, like he diversified so much in his business. Last week, I think I showed you something where now he got P5 Gaming.
Right.
So this dude done went from like bow ties to socks to suits to he even went at the
true
height,
entrepreneur
true
mindset.
true entrepreneur. I mean, like in the height of the pandemic, when PPE was like nowhere to be found, like he launched P5 supplies or P5, whatever, as an answer to COVID-19. And so he actually found a supplier and he started putting out P5. I mean, he started putting out masks, and he found like gloves, and he had like what is the hand sanitizer under his P5 brand. And so that's a true entrepreneur. He has an idea, and it goes from idea to concept to market quick. The hunger's always there. And that's what I think is lacking in a lot of students who say they want to be entrepreneurs. Like, they see something and they think about it. And
a lot of people say they want to be entrepreneurs when really they just don't want to work in what they say is the traditional sense.
Right. That's it.
Which is the getting away from the 9 to 5.
You're absolutely right. Because when I ask a lot of students and I say, well, why you want to be an entrepreneur? They say, because I want to be my own boss. That's the number one answer. I want to be my own boss. And again, I've said this on the thing. You're never your own boss. You're never your own boss. Well, we got one person who think they're their own boss, but I didn't even go there. But yeah. And so entrepreneur, again, from ideas today to business in a month. And then a wantrepreneur. A wantrepreneur is an idea today and an idea in 1+ months. And so, yeah, I mean, you want to speak to that?
Just kind of shifting from idea to idea, you get these big ideas, but you never really take the steps in developing that idea before you move on to the next one. It's easy to get excited by ideas. It's harder, I can even speak for personally, it's easy to get excited for ideas, especially being like a creatively minded person or I guess a heavy ambition person when it comes, and you'll find yourself vacillating from all these great ideas that you find yourself having. But it's harder when you have to go from this big picture thinking and start working on the actual process, the steps that it takes to build up to get there. I find that that's even something that I deal with personally. But like, how do you feel that gap?
Right.
And so.
And so the title of what we're talking about today is higher ed prep. And so for parents, again, when you start talking higher ed, I wanted to be that broad because I didn't want to say like college prep. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because higher ed education doesn't always come in the classroom.
Right.
And so as a parent, again, first thing I want to do is I want to understand that my son came to this earth with a bend. Like, he came to this earth with a mission. He didn't necessarily know what the mission was, but he had the raw skills and talents to fulfill that mission. And so as a parent, it was my job on Father's Day. I can call shout out to the fathers. As his father, I constantly studied him. I constantly watched him and saw what his bend was and saw what he was moving toward. And my job as his father was to help to facilitate that. And so as I look at going into higher ed, like, that job never stopped. And so it was about setting him up from day one. Well, first of all, set him up from day one with a mindset or mentality. But then even as I began to understand where he was going, and I finally got that aha moment with where he's going versus what he said he wanted to do, now moving into that coaching role and trying to help him to navigate through it. And so with him wanting to be an entrepreneur, like he said, sometimes, he's a creative. He always comes up with stuff. And so I'm still in that education prompt mode. And so as a matter of fact, I just asked you yesterday, the day before yesterday, you came up with this new idea for your for Instagram, how you were going to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, this is something we discussed back in March, and I'm like, dude, where are we on this idea? Because I know you thought about it in March. Like, is this something you still pursuing? Is this something you put on the back burner? Where are we with this idea?
On the back burner,
you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, as his father in his higher ed prep, my son's a student. He's a full-time student who's on the road to become an entrepreneur. And I understand that, the difference between an entrepreneur, now that I can put it into context based upon what this visual that I got on Facebook, the difference between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur is the gap between you coming up with the idea and you implement the idea.
The
and
idea is easy. The implementation is more difficult.
You're right. And so many kids vacillate between those two, and some kids get stuck in it. Or, they throw so much. It's like, this is almost like a food analogy, but they talk about like your body and your body's when you work out or whatever, and you got this fire burning, and then you take a wet blanket and throw on top of it. It's like a lot of students, they come out with all this ambition. They're like a fire, right? And then they don't really they have ideas, but they just keep heaping ideas on idea, and they smother the fire. They don't fuel the fire. Right. And so as a parent, as we're preparing our kids for the next phase in life, we need to continue to educate them as well. And that education comes in, let's constantly discuss, your educational pursuit, your career pursuit, your whatever it is. Let's constantly try to help you to defrag that. That's a word that I've been using with T since he's been very young. Let's defrag that. Let's make sure that it's full, fresh, and functional is another thing that we talk about. And make sure that you continue to move in a positive and upward direction.
It's really just going back to that whole preparatory mindset. You're always thinking ahead for the future. What am I doing now to get me to where I want to be later? And so when you're talking about whatever you're pursuing, whether you're going through a college degree or whether you're not, whether you're going down this path of entrepreneurship, it's really, where do I want to be now? Kind of that same thing, that big idea, where do I want to be now? What steps am I putting in place to get there? What tools am I using? Just how am I going to get there is really the main question. So you want to make sure that you consistently have that conversation. You're consistently checking, like, where are we on this path? Are we going a little to the left? Are we going a little to the right? Are we staying on the straight and narrow path? And so, I think that's it.
All right. So I reiterate this only because it's Father's Day, and so this is a call out to the fathers. Get into your kids' lives.
Talk to your children.
I ain't gonna say talk to your children, but like get into their business lives, get into their education lives, and again have the conversations. Not necessarily just about well, you're at college, you're supposed to do well because you're at college, but check their motivations and try to help them, because they don't know what they don't know. They won't tell you that they don't, and so just watch their ambition and always be in the higher ed prep business. It either be that higher ed from elementary school to middle school, higher ed from middle school to high school, higher ed from high school into college, or higher ed from high school into wherever life takes them, because we're going to be being educated for the rest of our lives.
There's always the next level.
There's always the next level. So Bum Podcast.
Between you and me.
Holla.